Have you ever thought about how some athletes become so big they turn into global icons? We're talking about those names that even your grandma knows, even if she's never watched a game. That's exactly what we're witnessing in women's basketball. The birth of a star who's about to join that exclusive club. Caitlin Clark is turning the game upside down and taking basketball to a whole new level. Just imagine a player so incredible, she's making people on the other side of the world fall in love with basketball. That's right, even in Africa, people are glued to her games. Clark isn't just a player, she's a global phenomenon. And the craziest part, all this in her first season as a pro. To start, it's important to understand that what we're seeing isn't just talent. It's a phenomenon that's redefining what we thought was possible in women's basketball. Let's look at the facts. Caitlin Clark was drafted by the Indiana Fever in the WNBA draft. And man, she wasted no time showing why she was so anticipated. Right off the bat, she made history. But it doesn't stop there. In her first season, Clark has already broken more than a dozen WNBA records. Among them, the record for assists in a single season. Think of a player who not only scores points, but makes everyone around her play better. That's Clark. And then there's the triple-double. Many players go their entire careers without getting one. Clark, she was the first rookie in WNBA history to record one. It's like she arrived in the league and said, "Hey guys, I'm here to make history." But Clark's impact goes far beyond Indiana. WNBA viewership as a whole has skyrocketed. Let me give you an example to understand how big this is. Game 4 of last year's WNBA Finals had 728,000 viewers. That was the record for the last 20 years. Guess how many games this season have already surpassed that number? 22! And guess what? Clark played in 18 of those 22 games. Coincidence? I think not. And there's more. The average WNBA viewership in 2024 is almost reaching that of the NBA on ESPN. Think about that. While NBA games average 1.56 million viewers, WNBA games reach 1.2 million. A few years ago, no one would have imagined this gap could be so small. This makes it clear that her impact is reaching places you can't even imagine. Remember when Clark was still playing for the University of Iowa? Well, that's when the phenomenon began. In a game against Ohio State earlier this year, over 3 million people tuned in to watch. That hadn't happened in women's college basketball for 25 years. But what really shows Clark's global reach is a story that seems straight out of a movie. Imagine a small town called Gulu in northern Uganda, a place most of you have probably never heard of. Now imagine a group of young women gathering in a hut with a TV powered by solar energy and Wi-Fi to watch. Guess what? That's right, a Caitlin Clark game. These women, many of them refugees and war victims, had never seen a basketball game before, and suddenly, there they were, fascinated by Clark dribbling, passing, and shooting. Do you see what's happening here? Clark isn't just playing basketball, she's inspiring people on the other side of the world. People who have faced terrible trauma are finding hope and inspiration through basketball thanks to her. And it's not just in Uganda. Reports of Clark fans are popping up from all corners of the planet. From Europe to Asia, from South America to Australia, the name Caitlin Clark is on everyone's lips. It's like she's become a global ambassador for women's basketball without even leaving the United States. But the most incredible thing is the effect this is having. In places where women's basketball was barely noticed, now there are girls and women wanting to play. Schools are forming teams. Communities are building courts. It's like Clark has lit a flame that's now spreading across the world. And we're not just talking about casual fans. Coaches from other countries are studying Clark's game. International players are drawing inspiration from her. It's like suddenly everyone wants to play like Clark. All of this leads us to an incredible conclusion. Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player. She's a global cultural phenomenon. She's doing for women's basketball what few athletes have managed to do in their sports. Think about it. A girl from Iowa is inspiring refugees in Uganda. A WNBA rookie is being watched on every continent. This isn't just basketball, it's the power of sport in its purest form. So the next time someone says it's just a game, remember this. Remember the girls in Uganda, the fans around the world, the lives being touched. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just playing basketball, she's changing the world, one basket at a time. All of this leads us to look ahead and imagine what the future holds for women's basketball with Caitlin Clark at the helm. And let me tell you, the future looks damn bright. First, let's talk numbers. The projections for next season are breathtaking. Experts are predicting that WNBA viewership could double. Double, folks. That means more games on TV, more media coverage, more sponsorships. It's like Clark has given the whole league a turbo boost. But it's not just about numbers. Clark's impact goes far beyond that. She's changing the way people view women's basketball. It's no longer seen as the little brother of the NBA. Now it's an exciting sport in its own right, with its own stars, its own narratives. And speaking of stars, Clark's arrival is inspiring a new generation of players. Girls who once dreamed of being the next LeBron James now want to be the next Caitlin Clark. This means more talent entering the sport, raising the level of the game even higher. But Clark's impact doesn't stop on the court. She's opening doors for everyone in women's basketball. Bigger contracts, better working conditions, more respect. It's like Clark arrived and said, "Hey, we deserve more." And everyone agreed. And what about business opportunities? With Clark as the poster girl, brands that previously ignored women's basketball are now lining up to close deals. This means more money coming into the sport, which in turn means more investment, better facilities, better talent development. It's a virtuous cycle that Clark initiated. But perhaps the most exciting thing is what Clark represents for the future of the game itself. She's not just playing well, she's redefining how the game is played. Her long distance shots, her impossible assists, her court vision, all of this is forcing teams and coaches to rethink their strategies. It's like Clark arrived and said, "Look, you can play like this too." And we can't forget about the global impact. With Clark as an ambassador for the sport, women's basketball has the potential to grow in places where it was barely noticed before. We might see more international teams, more global tournaments, maybe even an expansion of the WNBA itself to other countries. The sky's the limit. Of course, with all this hype comes pressure. The expectations for Clark are astronomical. But if there's one thing she's already proven, is that she knows how to handle pressure. In fact, she seems to thrive on it. In the end, the future of women's basketball with Caitlin Clark seems to be one of endless possibilities. More fans, more money, more talent, more excitement. It's like Clark has opened a door to a new and exciting world of basketball. So folks, get ready. The future of women's basketball is coming, and it has Caitlin Clark's name written all over it. The question is no longer if women's basketball will explode, but when. And from what we're seeing, that when is now. What do you think about everything we've said about Clark? Do you think she really has the potential to be one of the greatest of all time, or is it just hype? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm super curious to hear what each of you thinks. If you've been following Clark since her college days, tell us what it's been like to see her evolution. If you're new to the Clark hype, tell me what impressed you the most. And hey, if you enjoyed this content and want to stay up to date with everything happening in the world of women's basketball, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click that little button down there and hit the bell. That way you won't miss any new videos.